Welcome to Confident Women Island with me, Roisin the Cleric. On today's video, you're going to learn what Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, is, the 5 principles of NLP, why NLP is effective, and who uses NLP. And to tell us all about this, we have the wonderful Bernadette Rogers from the NLP Training Institute, trainer and coach Nlp and mBIT, and Bernie is based in the sunny southeast of Ireland in Waterford, and Bernie likes to train and coach people who like to make a difference in their lives and the people that they work with. Bernie Rogers, welcome to Confident Women Island.
Hi Roisin, thanks a million for having me. It's great to be here and to talk with you.
Bernie, as we said in the intro, you are a trainer and a professional trainer in training NLP and mBIT. What is NLP, Neuro-linguistic programming?
It's an absolutely wonderful name, isn't it?
Yes.
And really intriguing. NLP stands for, as you said, Neuro-linguistic programming. And basically what it is for me, it's about an attitude to life that makes being easier. And it's about a way of being which makes the doing of life easier. And it's about the having of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to replicate excellence, to improve awareness, and to give us choice so that we can live our life fully and successfully. The N in NLP stands for neuro, and that's basically how we work inside, how our mind and our body works together, how our neurology works to help us make sense of the world. The L stands for language, and it's how we use our language to make our life the life we actually live, and how we can tap into the language that other people use to hear how they're doing their living of their life, and how we use our language to give ourselves choice in what we do and how we do it. And the programming sometimes can be the really interesting part of it. The programming is we're all creatures of habit, and the programs are those habits that we have, the strategies that we run, the actions that help us to take actions or not to take action in our life. So it's about the way we do ourselves on the inside to run our lives on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis.
So NLP is about an attitude. It's also about tools and techniques as well, isn't it? And I'm missing something there: tools, techniques, and principles.
It is. It is. So absolutely, it's about an attitude, and I can tell you a little bit more about that later. And it is about tools and techniques. So it's about learning tools and techniques to help us in our lives. So one example would be there's a great technique called the new behavior generator. And essentially what that is, it's a way of trying on a new behavior before you absolutely have to do it, to allow you to refine it and, I suppose, to embody it. And an example of that would be, I worked with a client who had to do a big presentation in front of a group of people, really, really, really important. So we did a bit of work around her presentation skills and that, but she wanted to try on the new presenting behavior. So we did the new behavior generator. And basically that's running through in your mind's eye, so running through how it was for her to try on the new behavior, to see herself doing it in front of all the people that she was presenting to allow her to change it and make it even more perfect, step into the feeling, so she got the feeling of how it was to do that new behavior. And generally we run something through 3 times, maybe 4 or maybe 5 times to refine it. And what happened was, in the practicing and the refining of it, her body begins to recognize, or her body recognized that she could actually do this, so that when she actually went to do the presentation, she just flowed into the presentation effortlessly and easily because she had practiced it beforehand. And she'd also set what we call anchors of positivity for herself, so that to get her into a really strong presenting state. And because she practiced it before, her body, your body, what it does is it goes, oh, I recognize this. I know I've done it before. I know I've done this really well before. And you just get into the flow and you do it. So that's an example of one of the tools that we, one of the tools and techniques that we use, called the new behavior generator.
So NLP is about tools, techniques, and behaviors then. And is it about communication with ourselves and how we communicate with other people? So it's NLP, from what I'm hearing, is how we communicate to ourselves. And then how we communicate to ourselves is reflects on our internal thoughts, how we speak to ourselves, which then reflects on maybe our tone of voice and how we speak to ourselves. And then this affects our emotions, which affects our behaviors and therefore an outcome, just like you have said about the lady, your client that you worked with.
Absolutely. So we in NLP, we learn about ourselves first. We learn about how we communicate with ourselves, because that then gives us awareness and choice. And absolutely, like you said, it's about becoming aware of our thoughts, of our feelings, and how they impact on our behavior. And sometimes it's about becoming aware of our feelings first and how they impact on our thoughts and our behaviors. And sometimes it's recognizing our behaviors first and how they impact on the other two. And in NLP, we call that the cybernetic loop. And if we change one of them, the others automatically change. So it's about having an awareness of how we are in any given moment in time, and knowing that we can choose, excuse me, how we are at that moment in time. We can choose the most resourceful state for ourselves. And part of that might be recognizing what we're thinking and how what we're thinking influences how we're feeling and influences our behavior. And I don't know about you or your listeners, but on occasions I have voice, and sometimes that internal voice might just be hugely positive, and it's, you know, it's cheering me on. It's saying you can do this. On occasions that little voice may be not as positive as it could be, and, you know, kind of the Irish thing of, who do you think you are? And I have choice whether or not to listen to that, or whether or not I want to change that and change how I speak to myself, because I will feel very differently in listening to one voice or the other. And of course, I always want to be listening to the first voice rather than the second voice in there. So I get to choose how I feel, and how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking directly impacts my communication with other people. So my communication combined with my attitude can help me communicate clearly with the people that I'm talking to. And part of the attitudes we have in NLP, we've a set of what we call presuppositions. They're assumptions, and they may or may not be true, but we try them on, and if they work for us, and if they're more useful for us, they help. And one of them is about, I am 100% responsible for my communication. So if you're not getting what I'm saying, and I accept responsibility for my communication, well, then I change how I'm saying things to you. I change how I'm communicating until you get it. And then what that does is it makes it easier for the two of us to communicate.
That's really powerful, isn't it?
It is.
Because it reminds me, when you were speaking there now, of Dr. Wayne Dwyer. Change your thoughts to change your life. Change your thoughts to change your behavior. Change your thoughts to change your emotions to change your behavior. Change your thoughts to change your emotions, to change your behavior, to change the outcomes that you want for your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And these are the kind of things that we do innately. So there are times when we do all of this, so we have an inner awareness innately of all of this, and sometimes we forget to tap into that awareness and know that we have choice and the ability to change. And that's one of the gifts of NLP. It helps us connect internally with what we already have inside. So we already all have these resources inside, or we know where we can go to get them. But sometimes when we're stuck in what we call a problem state, we don't have the openness or the awareness to focus on where else we can go, what choices we have, what else we can do. And absolutely, what you were saying about changing one changes the other, and we've all done that. We've done it unconsciously. We don't necessarily know it, and it shows in our language. Where people say, chin up,
Yeah.
or shoulders back and chest out and chin up. That's essentially saying change your physiology to change how you're showing up in the world. Because it's very hard to be down in the dumps. It's very hard to be not stepping into your power, to be not positive, if you're standing with shoulders up, chest out, chin up, or shoulders back, chest out, and chin up. It's a whole different physiology, and your body reacts differently. So it's much easier to be confident, to step into your power, to have a presence when you're standing like that, rather than when you're slumped and your shoulders are down and your head is down. It brings you neurologically to a whole different place.
And that just goes to show that, when, say, many people have different roles in their life, and now a lot of women or even men, we all have, for self-employed, or we have different portfolio careers. So sometimes I know with myself, when I'm going to I wear different clothes for different jobs, right? So I have different wardrobes for different functions of my work. And when I'm, say, broadcasting radio, once I go into the studio, I have a different voice than if I was talking on the phone or talking at home. And so really, it's that thought pattern, isn't it? Where you said your thoughts change your physiology. Because for every different role that I have a different thought, a different perception of who I am in the world that I live in each job that I do, in my own identity, in each functions and roles that I have. So that makes sense, because when I go into the radio station, before I go into the studio and before I sit in that chair and before the red light comes on for on air, I have a completely different physiology than when I go I put the headphones on and I turn up the fader and we're on air. And just like everybody knows, Bernie, I am not very technologically savvy. And you know me, and every time I go to do anything, even on Zoom, I get into panic mode when I'm doing it. And then like last week and today, I said, Roshan, you can do this. And I spoke to myself with a soft tone and a confident tone. You can do this. Just don't panic. Just go through the motions. And if you need help, you can make a phone call and get help.
Lovely. And that's a wonderful example of, NLP in action. And what you're doing is you're doing a whole load of different things in there in what you've said. So part of what you're doing is you're anchoring for yourself. So when you walk into the studio is an anchor. Your headphones are an anchor. That talking to yourself is a verbal anchor, and that adopting different clothes for different areas of your life, they all act as anchors. And the interesting thing is, in some areas of our lives, we can be very, very confident, and we can have a whole different set of skills than in other areas in our lives. So each one of us have areas in our lives where we're supremely confident. So you go into the studio, you sit down, you put the earphones on, you're in that confident routine. I stand up in the front of the room to train, or I'm with somebody one-to-one coaching, I'm in that confident place. But each of us will have another place where we're not as confident. So technology is a great example at this moment in time when we're all getting used to it in a different way. However, using the skills of NLP, I can tap into the confident Bernie, you can tap into the confident Roisin and map it across onto technology. Become aware of what you're saying to yourself, how you're saying to yourself. So that thing of, you can do this, so I can do this, I can be calm, I'm excellent in this area, I can be just as excellent in the area of technology. These are all elements of NLP. So in NLP, what we do is we learn how to unpick how we do ourselves. So it's like getting the manual of how you do yourself on the inside and unpicking that to know what it is and how it is you're doing yourself, so that you can then apply it to all of the areas in your life, professional and personal, and apply where you're being really excellent into the places where you'd like to do a little bit better for yourself. And in doing that, because you're changing, you're allowing and enabling other people to change. And because you're becoming aware, like you said, of your communication, you're making it easier for you to communicate with other people. So you learn how to tune in with all of your senses. So not only you're listening, but what you're seeing and what you're sensing, what you're picking up. So you learn how to tune in more at a sensory level to what's going on with the other person. And then I as an individual can flex, or you as an individual can flex to meet the needs of the other person, basically to make it easier for them to communicate with you.
So NLP is, and you could use NLP as a personal development, personal awareness tool of becoming aware of what you're thinking, why you're thinking what you're thinking, how you're thinking it, and then it is so then you become aware of, then once you know that, you become aware of how you are verbalizing what you're thinking and why you're thinking what you're thinking. And that happens as a physiology with your body, your non-verbal communication with your body language. And then you become aware when how you're communicating with yourself. Therefore, once you have an understanding of that, you have an understanding of how you're communicating with other people.
Yes. And so many people do this absolutely unconsciously. And the nice thing about NLP is it brings it into conscious awareness so that you can refine it and be more elegant in your communication. And NLP is all about doing it with somebody and not to somebody. And it's about using the skills and the knowledge that you have from a place of integrity and with very strong sound ethics behind it, because NLP is very powerful and it will give you the opportunity to affect change, not only in yourself, but in the people around you through the language that you use and through your body language as well, because it's not only your verbal language, it's all the other things that go into to making up the communication. So the non-verbal language and the stuff that we kind of just send out, I suppose, energetically as well. And that for me is where the attitudes come into play. So if I'm holding on to positive attitudes about myself and about the people that I'm working with, that comes across in how I am at any given moment in time and how I turn up. And that's really important to help create those relationships with people, because everything we do, and the last couple of months, I think, have shown us that everything we do is based on relationship. And that's so important. That's so important. So it's about that whole area of working together and mutual respect in the building of relationship. And that dance of rapport, essentially getting to know each other and build that relationship.
So NLP isn't just about communication with yourself and other people. NLP is about building relationships.
Yes.
I like that, because and coming from a PR background, a media background as well, and a coaching background, and a trainer, as a professional trainer like you yourself, it's all about building and connecting with people through the power of language.
Yes, absolutely. And our language is so powerful. Our language, it directs our thoughts, and our thoughts direct what we achieve or what we don't achieve. And a lot of the time, our thoughts just happen randomly. We may not necessarily be aware of what we're thinking. And that's absolutely fine some of the time, but there are times when we do need to be aware of how our thoughts are influencing ourselves, and what it is we want. And so often, myself included, may not necessarily be clear about what it is we want. And this is where the first principle for success in NLP is actually knowing what you want. It's knowing your outcome. And that may
goal
be
setting as well. Then, if you know what you want,
yes,
that's like setting goals, setting a plan structure.
It is. It is. And in NLP, we call those goals outcomes. Because they're kind of goals with legs, as it were. They're goals with energy. They're goals with motivation, because we have a particular framework that we use to create those outcomes, to create those goals. And what they do is they help you create a 3D representation of what it is you want out there in the future. So you go into what the goal actually is, what it'll get for you, how you'll know you've got it, what you'll be seeing, hearing, and feeling when you've got it. It looks at the ecology. So ecology is very important. How is this goal for you in line with your personal values, but how does it fit into your world at this moment in time and the other people in the world? So that's really important. And also, is it something that you'll give the time, attention, and a lot of the time the work that it needs to take? Because it's not only about setting the goals and then sitting back and waiting for it to happen. The second principle for success is actually taking action. So it's all well and good to have a whole load of goals, but very nicely, if you don't get up and do something about it, you're not going to achieve your goals. You can put the intention out there, and what happens is when you put the intention out there, you're changing the focus of your brain. So your brain then begins to notice. So your unconscious mind loves to have direction. It loves to have clear instructions. It loves to have a direction to work towards. And what your brain will then do is it will filter for all of the things that will help you achieve your outcome. So think about, for those of us who have cars, or who even maybe have heard of a new author or a new poet or a new program on TV, before you noticed, you didn't even notice. Yes. But when you decide, I'm going to buy X brand of car, well, I don't know about you, but then I'll go out and I'll notice,
yes,
from absolutely nobody driving that car, the whole of the country seems to be then driving the particular car that I'm thinking of buying.
Even down to the color. Even down to the color,
absolutely. And the same with authors. I may never have heard somebody in a conversation will say, oh, did you read such a book? And then all of a sudden the whole world seems to be reading the book or watching a particular TV program. That's our brain filtering. We've directionalized it and filters. So if you set an outcome, you will then begin to filter for opportunities to achieve that outcome. And that will help you take action.
NLP is powerful, Bernie, isn't it? It's powerful.
It is so powerful. It's absolutely wonderful. It really, really is. And it's fun. It's so much fun to begin to get those aha moments in realizing, that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm doing that. And that's how I'm getting the results I'm getting. Now, if those results are positive for me, I'll go, well, I can have some more of that. And if I realize they're not as positive for me, well, then I know I have choice to change.
Yes.
And that's the powerful thing in there.
Really, because NLP is you know, it can, if you go and use the NLP tools, techniques, behaviors, and principles, and have the right attitude, it can really transform anyone's lives if they are committed to the time and the awareness, and go through the awareness of actually understanding their language patterns, the tone of voice, in the way that we speak to ourselves. And the way that we speak to ourselves is how we speak to other people. Would that be right?
I'd go yes, and so absolutely, how we speak to ourselves can show in how we speak to others. And also for some of us, I think there may on occasions be the way we speak to ourselves. We wouldn't even dream of speaking to others in the way we speak to ourselves sometimes. Because on occasions, I know I can have a little voice inside that's pretty mean. And not as supportive as it could be. And it's about catching that voice, and it's about remembering to be kind to myself. And sometimes it's easier to be kind to other people, and to forget about ourselves. And I think it's important to be kind to ourselves and to remember about that, about being kind to ourselves. And absolutely, what we're thinking inside can show unconsciously in our body language, in, just in the way we are with other people. So that's where attitude is very important. So those presuppositions I mentioned, one of they're all my favorites, but one of the ones I really like is there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And that's hugely important, because for me, if I'm coaching with somebody, if I'm training with people, and I'm operating from a belief of there is no such thing as failure, it's all only feedback, and if we take on that feedback and look at what we can do differently the next time, that means for me I'm operating from a very different space than if I'm looking at getting it right, getting it wrong, passing, failing. It's a very different space in there that I'm looking for. So that's where attitude for me is so important.
And Bernie, when I'm listening to you there, a few flashes went into my head. Is we talked about language and changing language, and we also talked about in how we speak to ourselves. NLP, I'm going to come to the language part after this. NLP, if I hear you right, and I've trained NLP with you. So NLP is a wonderful tool in actually of self-respect, self-value, self-appreciation, and self-love, because if we can change the way that we speak to ourselves, we actually can gain, for me, for confidence and everything else, if we can gain self-respect, self-value, self-appreciation, that all is the ingredients for self-confidence.
Yes.
Then if we change the language from saying, I can't do this, well, I'm not, so it's not one to the language of, it's not one of my strengths, but if I keep doing something or learn how to do something, I will be very proficient in learning that, being confident in that skill of doing something, like I am with computers. And it's a real behavior, and we have to start, as you said, within. And it's one way of really getting to know yourself, understand yourself, and all that package and ingredients for self-confidence, self-love, self-appreciation, self-value, self-respect, that are the ingredients for self-confidence. And then I'm thinking, wow, it's all about a behavior and how we behave to ourselves as well.
It is. It all starts with ourselves. And you're right when you say about language. Language is so important. And in NLP, we talk about the power of little words. And if you think about when I hear myself saying, I can't do that, if I add one tiny little word, and that's yet, onto the end of it, the difference that makes energetically inside of me. So if I say, well, I can't do that yet, it's really, really different to, well, I can't do that, because that kind of has a finality. But if I tack a yet on, all of a sudden it makes such a huge difference. It opens up possibility. it opens up potential, it adds in maybe motivation and a little bit of excitement. So that one little word can make so much difference to how we absolutely approach something. And if you think about it as, you know, as people who maybe live within a family structure, who work within teams, maybe who lead teams, who work with other people in whatever way, if we have an awareness around how we are, the gift that we bring to those people in our personal and professional lives is phenomenal.
Yes.
Whether it's from an attitudinal point of view or from a skills point of view.
So that is what NLP is. So Bernie, what are the 5 principles of NLP?
So the 5 principles for success, or the 5 principles of NLP, the first one is know your outcome. And that can be as small as when you have to pick up the phone to make a call to a colleague or a client. So it can be as small as that to as big as, what do I want from my life? And all of the spaces in between. So it's about knowing your outcome. It's about having a really definitive outcome that gives you energy and fits in with your sense of who you are. The second one is about taking action. It's taking that first step. And it might be about mapping out all of the other steps as well, but at least knowing what that first step is. The third one is having what we call sensory acuity. And essentially what that means is being tuned in. It's about noticing what you're doing in the moment and whether or not that's leading you towards your outcome or away from your outcome. And the fourth one is having behavioral flexibility. So part of that is literally being flexible enough to change what you're doing to get you more of what you want. But it also means having behavioral flexibility to give yourself a whole load of choices. So to know that there's more than one way of doing something, and to give yourself a whole load of different choices. And maybe to look at the other resources, the other skills, the other capabilities you have, or the people on your team or the people in your family have. So that's the behavioral flexibility bit. And the fifth one is operating from a physiology and a psychology of success. So it's making sure that you use your body in a way to help you gain whatever success that you're working towards at the moment. And success is different for each one of us. So it's making sure that you infuse your body with what you need, and you have the tools, the techniques, and the skills to do that. And then a psychology of success is being aware of those thoughts. It's being aware of the patterns that you run in your life and how you can choose to change those patterns. But for me, it starts with awareness. So it's creating that awareness, then knowing you have choice, and then choosing whether or not you want to change in how you're approaching it or what you want to do. So they're the 5 principles. Loads more goes in underneath each one of them. Very powerful, very, very powerful in there.
So NLP is a tool as well to change our internal states.
Yes.
How with our emotions at any given time.
Yes.
So we can change the NLP, the power of language, the power of awareness, and using all the 5 principles of NLP, we can change our emotional state at any given time.
We can, absolutely. So if somebody were coming on to do a radio interview, so before we began to have this conversation here today, Roisin, I made sure to anchor myself. So I have there's a wonderful process called the Circle of Excellence, which I know you're aware of, and not all of those listening or watching might be aware of But that's where you, I as an individual can decide in a particular instance, what kind of states, what kind of way of being, how would it be useful for me to be, to feel at any given moment in time. So for a conversation like we're having, I might want to be calm. I might want to be able to think on my feet, bring in a little bit of humor, and remember to remember stuff, and so that it flows. So I might put all of those into the circle of excellence. And then literally when we activate it, so when I activate it or when I trigger it, all of that just flows in. So I have that sense of calm alertness being present, and information just flowing between the two of us. And that's one of the tools that you learn, and anchoring is one of the techniques that you can learn how to do for yourselves. And we do it all of the time. So think of the ads on the radio. That, if I were to say one or two things that trigger, you'd know instantly. Think of your alarm clock going off, or traffic lights. Red means green means, and I won't ask what orange means, or what it should mean. So these are all anchors. So it's about becoming aware of the anchors that we have in our lives, and choosing anchors with purpose.
And so NLP is also about modeling excellence for that creative edge, isn't it? So modeling excellence. We do what we, it's a great saying, what we all know of. We do what we know now, and when we know better, we do better. And sometimes when we think, okay, I may not be confident now, but we won't fake it until we make it, but we'll model ourselves on doing a particular task on someone else who does it so effortlessly.
Yes, and NLP grew out of initially two people, Frank Puslik and Richard Bandler, who were both interested in Gestalt therapy in the early 1970s for themselves, and they had they formed a therapeutic group where they looked to help themselves, and they invited the professor John Grinder along. And this group of people worked together. So they modeled three therapists from very different areas who got absolutely wonderful results. And they looked at what they did and how they did it, because they wanted to replicate it for themselves and to teach other people, so that they could have those excellent results for themselves. So NLP is based on the whole concept of modeling excellence. And each one of us do that anyway. I'm sure we've all had a time where we've looked at somebody doing something and said, I want to be able to do that. Whether it was when we were a child and it might have been riding a bike or playing a particular game or playing tennis or football or hurling, to when we were older and maybe saw somebody in work exhibiting a particular skill, doing things in a particular way or doing a particular job, and saying, I want to be able to do that. So we might have looked at them and copied them. NLP takes it to a couple of steps further. So it looks at not only what they're doing on the outside, but it also looks at what they're doing on the inside. So what they're thinking when they're doing it, what their values are around what they're doing it when they're doing whatever it is they're doing, as well as the particular little steps in there. And hugely, hugely useful to do. And we can model ourselves as well as modeling other people. We can model ourselves from those areas in our lives where we're absolutely excellent, and we can map that across to the areas in our lives when we're not necessarily as good as we'd like to be.
Wow. So NLP works at a subconscious level and brings the subconscious levels of what we're thinking, feeling, and doing and behaving to a conscious level to get the outcomes in life that we desire.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely, because so much of what we do happens at an unconscious level. So when we talk about our conscious, our conscious mind, our consciousness, we're talking about what we're aware of at any given moment in time. And absolutely everything else is happening at an unconscious level. And our unconscious mind is absorbing absolutely everything that's going on around us, and it filters all of the extra stuff that we don't necessarily need at that moment in time out, but that's stored there for use um, at a later stage. And it's knowing that we can tap into that, and it's knowing that we have those resources sometimes buried quite deep inside that we can tap into and pull out for ourselves. That's hugely powerful.
And so, who is NLP for, Bernie? Who would, if someone was watching this video today and they said they heard about NLP, uh, who is NLP for? Neuro-linguistic programming. Who uses it, and what would they? How would they sort of use this resource for their lives?
It's for absolutely anybody and everybody. But so it's for absolutely anybody and everybody, but not anybody and everybody will actually take to NLP. Some people will go, absolutely, this is for me, and some people will go, no, it isn't, something else is, and that's absolutely fine. Elements of NLP also will appeal to people, and not absolutely everything, and that's really good too.
And
When I
Bernie, some people are using NLP and they don't even realize that they're actually
Yes,
using NLP on a daily basis.
I would say absolutely everybody is using NLP, because literally NLP is just about an awareness of how we are doing ourselves on the inside. So we're all here, we're all operating, we're all living life um, to the best that we can to this moment in time, using the resources that we have. So we are all using NLP, and going to learn about how we do ourselves, how we make up ourselves. NLP has been called the user's manual for the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd go kind
I
of
like that.
the user's manual for all of us. And so it is for absolutely anybody. So people can use it for personal development, people can use it for professional development, and children absolutely soak up
Me too.
NLP. They absolutely soak up NLP. I had somebody on the course a couple of years ago who was doing NLP from a professional, in a professional capacity, and she was soaking it all up. And her daughter was really, really interested in it at the time. So she'd go home every evening and the daughter would go, well, what did you do today? So her mum would tell her what she did in that day. And she was just so interested, and she just soaked it all up. And the daughter began to try on for herself some of the things to do. And it was really, it worked really, really well for the daughter. And would it be useful to tell you a story of how
Yeah,
they actually
yes,
used it?
yes.
So they at the time used to travel quite a distance to visit family.
Were they traveling by car?
They were traveling by car. They travelled by car quite a distance to visit family, and the daughter used to get car sick. So the mum had a conversation with her on one of the days and said, got her to tune into how she felt, and actually said to her to describe the feelings. So she tuned into how she felt, she described the feelings, and then she suggested that she take those feelings and put them somewhere else in her body. So the daughter put them down into the end of her leg, and she managed to travel for several hours in the car without getting car sick.
Right. I must try that
So
one. I must try that one, Bernie.
hugely powerful.
I must try that. So that's how children, you can actually transfer the NLP skills onto your children in your family life. So NLP would be good for trainers, coaches, and educators too, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because what it does for trainers, coaches, and educators, it introduces them to the use of what we call clean language, using language with awareness, and being specific in language, and using language to directionalize a person's attention and a person's thoughts. It will also teach them how to listen to how the people that they're dealing with, how the people that they're teaching, that they're training, that they're coaching are using language for themselves, and being able to change their language to essentially speak the same language that the other person is speaking. So the other person isn't even aware that I'm changing my language, but all they know is it's so much easier to talk to Bernie or to talk to Roisin because they seem to get me, they seem to understand me. And what we're doing is we're changing our language to speak the same language as them.
And that's where the expression is, oh, you're speaking my language.
It is.
We're on the
It
same
is.
wavelength.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because in our language, so we take in information through our senses, how we see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. Mostly for most of us, see, hear, and feel would be the main ones, generally in our language when we're talking. So if I'm talking to you, and if I'm using all seeing words and kind of and checking in with you saying, do you see what I mean? But I'm talking about visualizing, I'm talking about, well, picture this and visualize how it'll be, kind of next year when. But if you're a hearing person and I'm not using any hearing words, you're there and you're having to work really hard to translate my seeing language into your hearing language. And if I'm tuned in, I might hear you say to me, that just doesn't sound right. Or I'm not, it isn't resonating with me. And that might let me know, oh, hang on a second, the person I'm speaking to is using mainly an auditory mode, so they're processing through what they hear. Well, then that allows me to change how I'm speaking to you. So instead of saying to you, picture how it's going to be 6 months down the road when we introduce this new plan, I might say to you, well, how will it sound? Or, kind of tune into how it will be or how it will sound 6 months down the line when we introduce this. So I begin to use hearing words. You don't even notice I'm doing it. All you know is I've got it.
Yes.
So I change how I'm communicating, and oh yeah, I've got it now. And the conversation can move on effortlessly and easily.
Wow, NLP is such an amazing tool that we use every day in our communication with ourselves and with other people. And it's a really great, once we understand what neuro-linguistic programming, NLP is, Bernie, as I said in the beginning, it can transform our lives. As Dr. Wayne Dwyer said, change your thoughts to change your life. Change your behavior, change your emotions, change your emotional state, to change your behavior to get the outcomes that you want in life, and also with a time frame, and be very clear in what you want in your life. And you can only be clear in what you want in your life when you have clear communication within your self-talk and in your internal dialogue with yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So it is about remembering to be clear for ourselves, and having that awareness that our thoughts, our feelings, and behaviors impact on each other. And if we change one, we will change the other. And then knowing that we can change, and that we all have the resources inside ourselves to change. And if we don't, there are people out there who will only be too willing to help. and to share their resources to help us achieve what it is that we want to achieve as well.
And Bernie, you are an NLP coach and an NLP trainer and an mBIT trainer. So if people want you to learn about NLP or go on your training courses or come to you for coaching, how will people contact? We're going to put your links in the links below, but also you're based in Waterford in the sunny southeast of Ireland.
I am indeed. So the website is www.nlptraininginstitute.com, and the details of the courses are up there. With the changes that have taken place over the last couple of months, I've now moved online with the diploma. So there's a 4-day diploma. It's a foundation, an introductory level. After that, if people want. I'm still used to the face-to-face explaining of it. So it's a 4-day diploma if it's face-to-face, and it stretches over 6 weeks because it's online. We then have the practitioner certification. If you want, you can even go on to master practitioner certification and then to trainer. So people can contact me by telephone, they can contact me through the website. I would love the opportunity to chat to people. So sometimes people will have a conversation with me, and then they will decide, yes, we'll go on the training, or no, this isn't for me at this moment in time. A lot of people who are coaches come on the training. So I train an awful lot of people who are already coaches, because NLP and coaching, for me, marry together absolutely beautifully. They're like kind of, they form a beautiful whole, as it were, because
Definitely.
the two skills marry beautifully with each other.
Definitely, because I can relate to that, because when I was doing my life coaching course, I kept saying, but there's something missing, and I couldn't. Then all of a sudden, I went on Google, and I thought, there's something missing, and it was NLP. So as soon as I finished my life coaching course, I then went on to the NLP, and I just thought NLP was, to me, one of the biggest gifts to us all humans. And maybe animals are using it in their own way, in their communication, but for me, it's one of the most amazing tools that we humans can use to communicate. And it's actually a wonderful gift.
It is. It is such an amazing gift. It really, really is. It has transformed my life. And I came to NLP and coaching the other way around. So I did my NLP first, and I started off doing the NLP to enhance my training. And for me, there was another piece that was missing. So then I did my coach training with coaching development, and for me that gave the other piece in there. And then over the last couple of years, I've added another piece into that, which is the mBIT training, and that looks at how aligning head, heart and gut and bringing that into it. So that takes NLP to a whole different level. So whether you're, like you said earlier on, whether you're a coach, a trainer, an educator, whether you're involved in HR, or whether you're doing it from a personal development perspective, it is hugely powerful for everybody, and it helps everybody in all areas of their life.
Well, Bernie, NLP certainly did transform and change my life as well. I can vouch for that. And I was at one of your training courses where I just wasn't feeling great, and I brought my pink slippers with me, and it just grounded me through the training. And that's sometimes you just need something like that as an anchor. The color, the comfort. I needed my feet to be comfortable. I needed the color pink that day, and I just brought it in, and I said, can I wear this? Can I take my shoes off? Because NLP is certainly, it changed and transformed my life. And thank you, Bernie, for being part of that journey in transforming my life.
And Roisin, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to bring an awareness of NLP to a wider audience as well. And I remember those pink slippers, and they make me smile every time I think of them. So thank you for that.
My big pink blouse. slippers. I was like Bigfoot. I had 2 big feet in there.
Yes, wonderful.
Well, Bernie, I'm going to put all your links in the description box of this video, and I want to say we'll have many more videos with you here on Confident Women Ireland, and maybe you'll come on and tell us what mBIT is in the near future.
I would love to do that, and thank you so much, Roisin. Thanks a million, and good luck with everything.
Bernie Rogers from the NLP Training Institute, based in Waterford in the sunny southeast of Ireland. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Roisin.